I was born in Washington, Forks, Washington. I grew up here in the Vancouver community. Growing up, it was such a beautiful place to grow up. The streets were vibrant. The kids, we would go and cruise the gut. We'd go out to the rivers, go swimming, camping, bonfires. The streets were safe. The parks were clean. There wasn't any homelessness. There wasn't any crime. I went to Prairie High School. Followed my high school sweetheart over to WSU in Pullman, where I got a degree in history with a double major in English. So I joined the United States Marine Corps in 1994 and went overseas in 2003 in Operation Iraqi Freedom as a staff sergeant. I was a platoon sergeant for a combat engineer platoon, and we went to Baghdad and came back. It was a very interesting time in my life. Well, after I got out, my wife and I, we got married, we settled down. We now have 4 beautiful sons. My dad and I started our business in 2009. It's a heavy industrial masonry business. We built that business up from 2009 with nothing. Went to estate sales and garage sales to get equipment. I was putting toolboxes in the back of my car and putting them in the garage. And then we built that business up we sold that to our national competitor in 2018. I remember in the 1980s, they used to have signs all the way around Vancouver that Vancouver, Washington was America's city. And it doesn't look like that anymore. Yeah, COVID-19 was very scary early on. I mean, no one knew anything and no one knew what it was going to be. That's when the mandates started coming in. That's when the school closures started coming in. And that's when I really noticed the impact on my family. Watching my son struggle in school and not knowing when the schools were going to come back online, and knowing that we didn't have any time to lose. We couldn't wait another 6 months or 3 months or 9 months, however long it was going to be. We needed to do what was right for my son and my family. So I took that son and we homeschooled him. I took him around to my jobs in Arizona. We went to national monuments. We went and saw in cave dwellings, meteor craters, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I gave him the best education I could, but the schools were failing. What I saw with the government in relation to the COVID pandemic, they had an agenda. They decided what the policy was going to be, and then they didn't deviate from that. So when new information came in, they stuck to their guns, and they're still sticking to their guns to this day. What really concerned me the most was their ability to take away our rights and our freedoms in the name of their agenda. They called it public safety, but in reality they were doing more harm than good from their mandates. The lawlessness that came from the summer of 2020 and those riots, and our government's response to those riots was a complete decoupling of right and wrong. They basically took a problem and made it severely worse with their laws that they passed in response to those riots. I would say our politicians' response to the issues that we've had over the last couple of years have definitely made things worse. The issue is the cure is worse than the sickness. That hypocrisy really rankled me, and it really got me to want to get involved and want me to make a change for the whole community. I think the big issue here in Washington is that we have such a great economy. We have such a great area, geographically speaking. The weather is good, the scenery is fantastic, and we have abundant resources for energy. And we, our politicians, are deliberately hamstringing our economy with their green agenda and their demonization of fossil fuels that makes doing business here in Washington extremely difficult. And so what happens is that we artificially raise our energy rates, and then those manufacturing jobs, like the manufacturing industries, they move overseas because they can't compete here in Washington because the rates are too high. And so they move overseas, and then we ship it back, and all those good paying jobs are no longer here. By turning our economy from a manufacturing hub to a consumer-based economy, we've really limited our potential. We've hamstrung our populace, and the people are getting stuck in this two-income trap where they're barely surviving on two incomes. In the 1950s, in the 1960s, in the 1970s, we had one person working. They had a nice big house. They had a nice yard. They got to go on vacations. But today we barely can buy gas, and we can barely buy groceries. Washington's in a tough spot because the inflation rate here is hovering near 10%, and our wages aren't keeping up. And our state legislators, they had a chance this last session with a $15 billion surplus, staring at an 8.5 rate of inflation at that time. They had a chance to give us real relief, and they didn't. They just passed their policies, their Green New Deals. They've just spent all that money on partisan agendas. They show that they care about corporations, not the families of Washington. Families are the foundation of any society, and the reason I became involved with this because I've seen that our families have been neglected over the last several decades, and it can't keep going. As a family man, as a father of 4 sons, married to my high school sweetheart, I know how important families are, and families are struggling with this inflation. The families are struggling with the high crime, and families are struggling with the low accountability in our society. As your state legislator, I will put Washington families first. I will make sure that we have good paying jobs, affordable housing, that we have safe streets. Families deserve a place where they can thrive. The Washington state budget has ballooned from over $30 billion to over $60 billion in the last 10 years. They keep taxing us, and they keep spending all the money, and we don't really have a good account of where that money's going and what it really is doing. So it is my plan as a state legislator is to audit every agency, every bureaucracy. I think government needs to focus on its core responsibilities. We no longer can afford this utopian ideology. The big government has failed. Globalism is failing. And we need to get back to Washington first, family-focused policies. Washington's got a choice this election cycle. We can keep going down the path that we're going down, or we can take a turn because we need to change direction. I am Jeremy Baker, and I am running for the Washington State House of Representatives for the 49th Legislative District, Position 2. I'm Jeremy Baker, and I approve this message.